this video. I hope you're all doing well. Today is something a little bit different, as you can probably tell by the fact of me not being on my normal channel or on Instagram. This is the page of the wonderful people at Splatteredplastic, and they have kindly invited me to answer 6 questions that tell you a little bit about my horror collection and a little bit about me and where I am with my soundtracks. If you want to get involved, by all means do. You can make a note of the questions, or I'm sure they'll be in the description somewhere as well. And if after hearing me blab on endlessly about vinyl soundtracks you still want to hear a bit more, then you can follow me on Instagram at the little label that's down here as well. Right. The questions. And we start with what in my opinion is the easiest question, because this is a very vivid memory for me. What was your first soundtrack? And not only was this my first soundtrack, this was my first piece of coloured vinyl, so I was very, very excited for this, and it is Zombie Flesh Eaters. Now, being a Video Nasties fanatic, I had to start with the Nasties somewhere, so why not start at the end, alphabetically? Yeah, fantastic soundtrack on this movie. It always stood out to me, even when I saw it when I was far too young on like a Vipco uncut edition. The music was always fantastic. This is a Death Waltz and Mondo release with the original artwork, which is really sweet because that image is so iconic. It's on it's even on the cover of the book that Stephen Thrower did, I think, Beyond Terror, the films of Lucio Fulci. It's no wonder why they chose that image, because it's absolutely startling. If we open it up, inside you can see the famous eyeball scene. I hope it's not reflecting too badly. And then on the back we have a few screenshots and the track listing here. Now, the track listing, point of contention. I have to be honest, a little bit disappointed with this release, because it has a lot of music in it, that film. You don't realise until you actually watch it how much music is in it, but this release is compacted down into 8 tracks, 2 of which are pretty much a sort of jungle drum beat on loop. However, it does contain, obviously, the fantastic main title theme, and yes, it does also contain that really jaunty theme when they're on the boat and it's sailing off to the island of Batul. But yes, probably not the best start, frankly, because it's not one of my favourite releases. However, that was my first release, and that was my first piece of coloured vinyl. Who are your favourite composers? Now, I've picked a few. I've picked one that I think is going to come up a lot in this tag, frankly, if you are talking to horror fans. I've picked one purely because they've made a huge impact on me, and I've picked a third one because they're not a film composer. They have composed soundtracks for video games. They may have done films as well, but there's one particular soundtrack that they did that I have in mind that I'll be showing you in just a bit. But the answer that I feel like will crop up a lot is, of course, Goblin. Dario Argento, George Romero, they worked with a lot of different people, did soundtracks for Giallo movies. Obviously, they did the soundtrack to Dawn of the Dead. They did the soundtrack to Beyond the Darkness. But yes, basically, if you're a horror fan, if you're a cult horror fan, you will have heard of Goblin soundtrack, and this is arguably their most famous one, alongside Deep Red, which is also fantastic. This was the waxwork release of the Goblin soundtrack. It is one of my favourite releases I own. From one of my least favourites to one of my favourites. It's absolutely stunning. It's on lovely coloured vinyl as well, which I'll pull out just now for you. You have to bear with me because my setup is not professional. There it is. Absolutely gorgeous. And it would be remiss of me not to show this off. This doesn't contain any Goblin music, but this is the waxwork release of the library music that was in that movie. It's on 3 LPs. It's a very long album, but man alive, it's one of those movies where you can hear a piece of music and just pinpoint exactly where in the film you are. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I'll pull out one of the records. I'm not going to go mental on this. This, I don't know if it's still available. I was going to say, if you want to see all the colours, obviously you can go over to the site and have a look. But I frankly don't know whether this sold out, because it's a popular one. There's a lot of people on Instagram showing this one off. Now, anybody who follows me on TikTok or Instagram will know that I am a huge David Lynch fan. I've just finished reading his biography, Room to Dream, which is why in my head the seed was planted to include David Lynch, of course, but obviously the wonderful Angelo Badalamenti as well. The soundtrack to Blue Velvet is stunning. Not only the music composed for the film, but the song choices within the film. Obviously Roy Orbison makes a very famous appearance in song form in this movie, and it's just perfect. It's absolutely wonderful. And this is the first instance of hearing the wonderful Julie Cruz as well, who is responsible for the song Falling, which then became the main title to Twin Peaks. The 3 of them together were absolute gold. Yeah, so this is the frankly quite boring soundtrack to Blue Velvet. There is a much nicer release of this from, I think it was a Record Store Day exclusive to LP. I think it has a bit more of the incidental music and maybe a few more songs on it as well. If I'm to show off a collaborative effort from them, which also includes Julie Cruz, we also have the Twin Peaks soundtrack. This is season 1, but you can also find Fire Walk With Me, and then 2 separate releases for season 3 as well. It's another one that has kind of songs and music composed for it, all done by Angelo Badalamenti. And I will quickly show this off because any Twin Peaks fans will be interested to see that they released the soundtrack to Twin Peaks on, not cherry pie vinyl, on coffee coloured vinyl, which is only suitable, isn't it? It's what Dale Cooper would have wanted, but that is a fantastic release from 3 fantastic composers. Incidentally, this album as well, Floating in the Night, is Julie Cruz, her glorious, soaring, surreal vocals, written and produced by Lynch and Badalamenti. Not a soundtrack to anything in particular, but a few songs from this make it into Twin Peaks and other places, but this is a beautiful album. Now, the last one that I picked is an interesting one because this person has recently come back into prominence because a new Silent Hill game has just been released. It was free on the store. I think it's called A Short Message. I played it, fucking hated it. But importantly, Akira Yamaoka did the music for it, who did the music for the original Silent Hill franchise. And this, my friends, is, in my opinion, the best game soundtrack ever made. This is a stunning piece of work from the Japanese composer Akira Yamaoka. This is Silent Hill 2, obviously. Open it up and I believe we've got an image of Pyramid Head in there, which is very nice. This is a kind of, it's almost, it crosses a lot of genres. You've got sort of, not that you'd expect rock music on a horror soundtrack, but rock music on a horror soundtrack. You've got kind of industrial, surreal soundscapes. You've got some really beautiful pieces of music on here as well. But yeah, that was my wild card. That's Akira Yamaoka, Silent Hill 2. What are your favourite labels? Now this again, I feel like there's going to be a lot of doubling up on these answers, so I'm not going to linger too long, but my first pick was One Way Static. They're not particularly prolific, I should say. They don't have an enormous back catalogue like the likes of a couple you're going to see in a minute, but their releases that they have put out are absolutely fantastic. You can find The Burning from One Way Static Records. You can find, I believe, The Hills Have Eyes from One Way Static Records. You can definitely find The Last House on the Left soundtrack, which is obviously an interesting experience. But I wanted to show this one off quickly. This is the A Bogeyman, obviously infamous Video Nasty. I'm not going to open this up because I don't want to get the lovely people at One Way Static Records banned because there's some boobies in the middle of the gatefold. I will show the vinyl off quickly because it's on fantastically gloopy green vinyl. But a reason this stands out for me, this release, is because it includes something that I've never seen before. And I'm going to pull it out just now. It includes this. If you read that label there, in fact I'll read it out for you. So it says, "This is a CD record that must be played on your turntable. Do not insert this into your CD player." Now you can see why someone might, because have you ever seen a record that looks like that? I haven't. It is CD sized, but right around the edge there, I don't know if you can see, there is some grooves, and that contains like a 30-second promo for the film, like a sort of TV spot trailer kind of thing. And it's, as I've said when I've showed this off before in places, wholly unnecessary, quite a faff to put on for what you get. But did they have to include it? No, they didn't. I've never seen anything like that before, but let me know if you have. Now this one's going to cover 2, because this is Death Waltz and Mondo. You know when I was talking about catalogues that are sprawling, stretching, far too many to collect? Death Waltz and Mondo, here we are. There is a huge back catalogue of their releases. Some of them are very hard to come by. And they just keep going and going and going, and we'll announcing new things. But this is one of my favourite releases from theirs. This is Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Now, another interesting reason I've picked this one, I'm trying to pick an interesting release for each thing, so I've got something cool to show off. Obviously we've got the bizarre and creepy cherub in there. Ringo Starr apparently was meant to be in this movie. But yes, not only is this a brilliant soundtrack from Ennio Morricone, who I could have very well mentioned in my favourite composers section actually, this, I believe, to my memory, is my only piece of etched vinyl. This is not going to show up very well on camera because the vinyl is clear, but I'm going to pull it out and give it a go. When I say clear, I mean crystal clear, especially in the dead wax in the middle. However, if I try and... oh, that's actually kind of showing up a little bit better than I thought. You can see just about, it's not scratched to fuck. There are, as much as it looks like it, there are in fact 4 flies etched into the 4th side. Goes over the label and everything. That is fantastic. And my final pick for favourite labels is, of course, Waxwork Records. I'd be very shocked, frankly, if any of these videos go by without mentioning Waxwork Records at some point. Again, prolific isn't the word. They have a huge back catalogue, fantastic website. They did a release last year of The Funhouse, which I'm itching to get my hands on because it's absolutely glorious. However, Frankly, yes. The releases, though, are absolutely out of this world. They just seem to get better and better. And my choice to show off on this occasion is the soundtrack to Dario Argento's semi-sequel to Suspiria, Inferno. This is possibly... is it the prettiest vinyl I own? I'm not going to say it's the prettiest vinyl I own, but man alive, it is up there. I'm going to pull it out for you just now. One of the prettiest gatefolds as well. It's very, very colourful, as you'd kind of expect from Argento. And I'm gonna, I think they're on two different colours as well. I might actually pull out the one I think is the prettiest as well, because that's waxwork. That is a thumbnail. If you don't use that, I'll be very, very annoyed. Yeah, that is a stunning piece of coloured vinyl. And I'm gonna pull the other one out as well, just to check, because I'm sure it's different. It is different, but not quite as pretty. And just because I'm on a tangent and it's waxwork again, this, I believe, might be the prettiest vinyl I own. This is the soundtrack to The Prowler, also known as Rosemary's Killer. Artwork on this is absolutely incredible and stunning and glorious, but it is nothing compared to the vinyl, which is just glorious. It's got that kind of wartime green colour with flecks of blood red in there. It's absolutely beautiful. In fact, the second disc might be even better. I mean, you've heard of splatter vinyl. Look at that. It's like peacock feather vinyl. Do you collect variants? The answer is no. And again, it's one of those things I'd absolutely love to do, because man alive, there's a million and one different sorts of every album coming out now on different variants and colours and configurations. However, I don't know how well it's going to show off, because frankly, I'm not used to filming in landscape. I'll lift it up slightly. My passion for collecting isn't always with records. This is a lot of boutique box sets and things from the likes of Arrow Video and 88 Films, Vinegar Syndrome. You can see my soundtrack collection is down there. Frankly, that's just kind of where my love lies. That's where most of my money goes to. So at this point in time, that's better. At this point in time, most of my money gets funneled into my main hobby, which is collecting of the films. So I'm happy just to own any release of the soundtrack as long as it's kind of as complete as it can be. Another issue is space. I'm struggling for space a little bit with just the movies, and they are noticeably quite smaller than records. So as much as I would love to collect variants, I'm going to leave that to the people who have the resources to do so and the space, and I'm going to be happy with my little individual releases. What is the rarest album in your collection now? This is an interesting choice, because I genuinely don't know if this is rare or not. However, I have never, in all my time of collecting, seen anybody else have this in their collection and show it off. Other people obviously do, but I've never seen it. Every other release I've shown has been plastered on Instagram and YouTube and other places like that, but no one has ever shown off, that I've seen, The Last House on Dead End Street soundtrack. Now, not only is this a really interesting album, this is a really interesting movie. There is, and I'm going to shamelessly self-plug here, a short documentary that me and a friend Jack made about the making of this movie that's on my YouTube channel. And it's a fascinating film. It's not had a proper release yet. Your best bet of seeing it, in fact, is on this release here from Vinegar Syndrome, of a film by the same director called Corruption. This is a pornographic movie. I'm not going to make any, any way around that. However, in the extras, it does say at the end, plus more. You can find the nicest looking version of Last House on Dead End Street on this disc somewhere. I think it's in 2K, but it's not had a standalone release yet. Vinegar Syndrome say they've been working on it for quite a long time, but we haven't heard anything in a good few years. So whether it's been abandoned or whether they're just putting all their effort into it, I don't know. But imagine my surprise when a film as obscure as that comes up with a fucking vinyl soundtrack. It says here, Last House on Dead End Street, soundtrack comprised entirely of tracks from the legendary KPM music library. So there is no original music on here. It is all library music, but it's really, really good library music. It makes its way into a few other films as well, which I'm frankly struggling to remember, but Delia Derbyshire makes an appearance on this album. Now, if you don't know who Delia Derbyshire is, she's responsible for the Doctor Who theme tune. So yeah, there's some of her work on here. I'll quickly pull it out, because like I say, if you've not seen this release before, it's well worth a look. It's not on any kind of special vinyl. In fact, I'm struggling to remember the record label. Let's give them a little mention, shall we? Vombis Records. That's VOMBIS Records. That's upside down, Ben. Yeah. Weird, isn't it? What are you currently listening to? Now, this one has a little bit of a story. It starts with this album here. Arrow had a sale last year. This was going for like 10 quid or something ridiculous. The soundtrack to Death Smiles on a Murderer. I'd be stupid not to get it. Then my dad bought it me for Christmas. We doubled up. So what happened is I sold the second copy of this, gave him the money, and then I said, try again. And he did. And he got me this, the soundtrack to Mario Bava's final feature film, Shock. This is, I'll put this other one down so I can talk about it properly. I know the soundtrack, but currently listening's it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? Because obviously people listen to a lot of different music, but I picked this purely because this is probably going to be the next album that I play, because it's the newest one in the collection. Death Waltz, Mondo, Cinevox. This is a really good soundtrack by, I can't remember if it's a library music or it's a band called Libra, and it sounds like, and this is no disrespect because they do it very well, it sounds like they're doing their best Goblin impression. It's kind of very, very bassy, funky music. Frankly, a fantastic movie. It's really good. It's a supernatural horror film that is genuinely really creative with its scares, and there was a moment in this movie that really made me jump. I consider myself slightly hardened, so that doesn't happen all too often, but when it does, I really enjoy it. Yeah, this is on kind of cloudy vinyl, 2 LP set, but this will be the next thing to grace my turntable, and that is the end of the questions. As I said at the start, thank you so much to Splattered Plastic for inviting me to do this. I've really enjoyed pulling them out, and yeah, looking at them, because frankly, like I say, that's kind of where my priorities lie with collecting. So without sounding awful, my soundtracks sometimes get a little bit neglected, but it's cool to pull them out every now and again and just, you know, remember how cool they are. But yeah, if you're at all interested in any of this, obviously Splattered Plastics is the place to be. There's the YouTube channel that I'm on right now, plus their Instagram page. And like I say, if you're still not bored of my voice after like 20 minutes, Jesus Christ, by all means, you can follow me on Instagram and you can follow me on TikTok. And if you want to see my YouTube channel for some bizarre reason that I never use, then yeah, I'll leave links on the video here, but if Splattered Plastic, put them in the description as well, that would be cool. If not, obviously just make me look like a tit. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, can't wait to see other people's entries and opinions.